mother of Kylee Hunter. She was born with classic bladder exstrophy and she is currently 17 years old. She was born on tax day, I remember, because she was 3.5 weeks early, and I went in and they were saying, oh, you have a tax baby, and I remember thinking, gee, I'm glad I got my taxes done. Anyway, but that's beside the point. So my husband always thought she was going to be a girl. I always thought she would be a boy. And so when I went into labor, we went in and I had her, and the doctor, we're like, oh, is it a boy or a girl? And he says, I think it's a girl. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, you think it's a girl? What do you mean you think it's a girl? And so he says, well, go get so-and-so and go get so-and-so. And then pretty soon the on-call pediatrician came in and he says, oh, what's her name? And I said, so it's a girl? And he says, oh yeah, it's a girl. But my OBGYN felt really bad, A, for not catching that she had bladder exstrophy in the ultrasound, and B, not knowing if she was a boy or girl, because he couldn't tell. So he said, I'll take the placenta and go get it all checked out. And so he did, and a day later he came back and said, she's all girl. And I was like, okay. So that was nice to know, and it's nice to know that we have that option. So it's my understanding that is somewhat common in exstrophy, that the genitalia sometimes can go either way, or you're just not sure. So that is something you can get checked out on. Kylee, after that, had there was no peds NICU there at that hospital, so they took her by ambulance to another hospital. I had to stay overnight in the hospital and wait to see her the next morning. That was very difficult because my mom, my dad, and my husband all, of course, wanted to go be with Kylee. So I kind of just hung out in the hospital. Luckily, my sister came to stay with me. But I got out as soon as I could the next morning, went down there, and we were on the phone with doctors trying to figure out what do we do? How do you just make her better, right? Gotta make her better so we can take her home. And we met with the surgeon, I think it was Saturday night or the following Monday. And I said, how often do you see this? And he said, once a year. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is a rare condition. Once a year, that sounds pretty good to me. And so we just put our trust in him that everything was going to turn out okay. So a week later, they did the surgery, which later on we found out was supposed to have been done within 24 hours. But he told us the older she was, the better chance she had at the surgery, which again, made sense to us. So she had her initial closure, which was about 7 days old. And they had told us that there was a chance of dehiscing, but I didn't really understand it at the time. So he left to go out of town ironically, to go listen to Dr. Mitchell in Texas about 3 days later. And on, I think it was the following Wednesday, Art and I were at the hospital, and we watched her whole incision just completely dehiss and the whole bladder come back out again. It was the worst night of my life. I remember thinking, someone give me a needle and thread, I'm gonna sew this back on myself. And we got on the phone with the doctor and found out that he was at that conference. I just thought that was strange. Anyway, so needless to say, for about the next 3 weeks, she stayed in the NICU that they had there at Sutter Memorial in Sacramento, and they had cut her from the front instead of the back. No, they cut her from the back instead of the front. They did it wrong, and they had her wrapped in this. She looked like a little mermaid, and it was the wrong way to do it. We found out about the ABC discussion group, and they quickly told us about Johns Hopkins and Children's Hospital in Seattle. And by the time I called up to the hospital in Seattle, people had already told them about us. So there was a mom that had a daughter with bladder exstrophy in Sacramento area, and it was just really very warming and very consoling to know that there was this community out there. So needless to say, we flew up there a week later because we had to wait for cheaper plane tickets, and they said that they would do the surgery as soon as we could. So my husband got off work, we went up there, she had another surgery to put the bladder back inside, and that was with Dr. Mitchell. Dr. Grading, ironically assisting, who eventually took over for Dr. Mitchell and became Kylee's urologist. And the bladder stayed inside, everything was great. At about, I took her home, and they had her in a spica cast and for a while. And we had that weird car seat that you prop her in. I don't know, it was strange. The best thing we found was just to get a bean bag, and we just stuck her in the bean bag, and she seemed to be fine doing that. Okay. And then when she was about 18 months old. They wanted to do the ureter implant and bladder neck repair, and we went up there and they didn't like how her pelvis had spread too much. You could put a whole fist in between the two, so they wanted to do another cut of the pelvis to bring it closer to pull the bladder up in. So she got put in another spica cast, and that was really tough because she had learned how to start walking, and with the spica cast, when she came back out of it, she had to like kind of relearn to walk again, and that was really tough. And it was, we did bring her home from the hospital for a couple of weeks before that second surgery with the bladder on the outside of her body, and that was a little crazy and interesting, but I was scared to take care of her that way, but it ended up not being as hard and bad as I thought. Once she was 3, we went up and she had her first augmentation and the Mitrophanoff put in. I remember afterwards him saying that they used her appendix to make the Mitrophanoff. I didn't remember him saying that, so when he said that, I thought, wow, she has no appendix anymore. But anyway, so they used the appendix for the Mitrophanoff. We took her home. Well, we were up there for quite a while, and then we took her home, and she was in that. It just didn't work. I think there was so much scar tissue from the initial surgery that was done incorrectly that they weren't able to get that bladder. It just turned her whole little bladder. I think at first it was an 8cc bladder. Then when they did the first augmentation, it never got any bigger than a 50cc and ended up being like all scar tissue. And so she lived with that for quite a while, and she was always leaking. She wore pull-ups, and she dealt with it quite well. I was always very proud of Kylee. She's a strong soul, and kids would say, oh, you're wearing a diaper, and she'd say, no, I'm not, I'm wearing a pull-up. Anyway, I always thought that was really funny. So after she had the augmentation, then she had the catheters, and she was, going to be in kindergarten, and we would cath in the morning, and then I'd pick her up from kindergarten and cath again. So it wasn't until first grade that I started sending her to school on her own, to cath on her own, because she wanted to cath on her own. Everyone thinks I'm crazy because I let her go to school and do it herself without me, but I thought I can't go to school every 2 hours to cath her. So she started cathing on her own at the school in first grade. The nurses were great. We kept all the storage stuff in the bathroom. She had pull-ups still to wear, and then because she still would leak some, we had the catheters. She never, I'll just say right now, never has been completely common. She still isn't, and she's 17. So in first grade, when they had show and tell, after she had these catheters, she decided to take the catheter to school for show and tell. I was very concerned because I thought, oh boy, what is everyone going to think? She has these catheters and kids aren't going to understand. What if they eventually make fun of her? Because they're going to remember she brought this like strange catheter looking thing when she was younger. But Kylee wanted to take it, and I thought, I'm going to let her make her choice. Even though she's young, she'll learn if it ends up being a mistake after all, right? The best advice anyone ever gave me when she was first born was just to treat her like all the rest of my other kids and not do any special treatment. And so I've pretty much abided and lived by that. Of course, when she's having surgeries and needs medical care, she gets a little extra special treatment. But for the most part, it was like, you want to do that? Okay. So she took her catheter in. So then after that, kids knew. So she would go to the nurse's office every couple of hours, and if she forgot, they would call. We also tried getting one of those watches that had the little timer that would go off. That worked for about a year, and then she lost it, and I just didn't ever get another one. But the nurses were really pretty good about calling her if she didn't remember. Kids started asking, why you go to the nurse's office so often? And I said, well, what did you say? And she said, I told him I'm just going to take my medicine. I thought, that was brilliant. How did you come up with that? Oh, I just thought of it on my own. And I've always been impressed to this day and she still says that. Why you go to the nurses, to anyone who asks her so often? I'm going to take my medicine. Then if they ask further, well, what are you taking your medicine for? They'll say, she says, oh, it's for my kidneys. Because for some reason in this world, it's accepted if you have problems with your kidneys, but not your bladder. Because I guess everyone associates bladder with urine, and no one wants to talk about urine, but kidneys apparently doesn't involve urine, people think. Anyhow, so that's what she does, and she's always done great. So that's how she's dealt with it all. We started having problems. She was just leaking so much that we thought, let's try the bladder neck wrap. So we did a bladder neck wrap, and that did not work at all. All it did was cause her to have more backup into her kidneys and get more infections. So after about 2 years of getting infections every 6 weeks and missing a lot of school, we decided to go see Dr. Grady and ask what our options were, thinking that probably we would just tie our bladder neck off. And up at Seattle, they don't always necessarily encourage that because they like to have another outlet just in case there's something else goes wrong. And so he said, well, why don't you do another augmentation? And we didn't even know that that was an option. So I asked Kylee, do you want to do another augmentation? And she said, sure, let's try that. And that was actually the best decision we've ever made. So since the augmentation, she still leaks, but the older she gets, the better she is at cathing on time, and she can be dry for quite a while. She'll use the little thin poised panty liners, and that seems to work for her. She went 3 years without getting any infection. She's not had one kidney infection since that second augmentation, and she'll get UTIs every so often, but I'm convinced it's just because she doesn't do personal hygiene really well, or she'll wait too long to cath. Other than that, she's a great kid. She does all kinds of sports. She's played softball, basketball, tennis. She does leadership. She's currently the ASB treasurer. She's done beauty pageants. She's a leader active in her church community. She will not let it stop her. She's told me several times, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to let it hold me back. And sometimes as a mom, I worry, okay, wait, I think you may be going a little overboard. I think it may be causing more problems. But she assures me, Mom, I'm good, and when she needs to take a break, she just will go and take a nap and rest for a little while. I just couldn't be more proud of her, and we call her our family cheerleader. She's positive, happy, more than everyone else in the family, and I'm just happy to be her mom, and I'm just